Welcome back. In case you turned on any noisy personal devices like cell phones that beep at you whenever you get a message or whatever, please turn them off. And in case you forgot our rules, we don't really like you to boo or hiss or cheer or clap or do any of those things. And now I'd like you to welcome our two candidates for state senator, Kevin Vanderweg, and who is the incumbent and a Democrat, and Danielle Turcini, whose party affiliation is Independent Republican. The Washington State Legislature is a bicameral institution consisting of a Senate and a House of Representatives. It meets annually in Olympia to create new laws, change existing laws, and enact state budgets. It consists of 49 members representing 49 districts, and our District 24 encompasses all of Clallam and Jefferson counties and most of Grays Harbor County. They earn $45,774 a year, plus a DM per day of $120 for each day the legislature is in session, and they serve 4-year terms. Each candidate, in the order they filed for office, will be given up to 3 minutes for their opening remarks, and then you will have an opportunity to ask questions, just like in the earlier part. And at the end, each candidate will make their closing remarks of 2 minutes. So both candidates were asked to provide the same information that we asked our first round: education, work experience, community involvement, their qualifications, primary goals for their first year, and how they plan to address the issues of our country, or in this case of our state. And candidates, please keep an eye on our timers, those two people right there, who will alert you to your time limits, and you'll see a big sign that says stop. And then you should stop. All right, we will begin our opening statements with Mr. Vanderweg.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum tonight. I'm Kevin Vanderweg, running for state senate. Just a quick correction, I'm not actually the incumbent. I'm currently a state representative running for an open state Senate race. Senator Jim Hargrove is retiring, and so I made the difficult decision to move from the House of Representatives to the state Senate, and this is part of that campaign. As I mentioned, my name is Kevin Vanderweg. I live in Sequim with my wife Jennifer. She is the elementary school vice principal here in Port Angeles. Our two children are go to public schools. Jack is in 7th grade. Allison is a sophomore in high school. My real job, my full-time job, is I'm a firefighter for Fire District 3, which is covers the area, including Sequim and the area around it, all the way east to or west to Deer Park. Education-wise, I went to Edmonds Community College for fire stuff, got a paramedic certification from Northwest Medical, have a bachelor's degree in social science from Washington State University, and just this year finished a master's in public administration from Fort Hays State University. I have been involved in the community. One thing I like to talk about is being a firefighter. When we're in Olympia, a lot of people have a lot of great ideas, big ideas, but being a firefighter, I have daily interaction with folks when they're at their neediest. We're out solving problems for folks and helping them with whatever emergency they have currently at hand. In fact, today I'm working, I took 5 hours off, and we'll go back to the fire station once I'm done here. And that helps keep me grounded. It really helps me see the day-to-day struggles that people have to deal with, particularly around healthcare and our emergency medical services. So it's something I think that prepares me well to represent you in Olympia. One of the things that I find people do best in is when they have a job. They're able to support their communities, their schools, there's less addiction and drug abuse and families stay intact. And so my 10 years that I've spent in Olympia, the last 6 being majority whip, I've worked hard to create jobs. And the first part of creating jobs, I believe, is making sure we keep the jobs that we have. I've worked hard to keep our mills open and producing, and have been successful at that. And as we're looking towards the future, CLT, cross-laminated timber, which we'll probably have some questions about, is a new economy that I think can do well in the North Olympic Peninsula and help create jobs. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Terracini?
Okay, I'm Danelle Terracini, and I'm running for the Senate seat in the 24th Legislative District. I live in East Jefferson in Port Ludlow with my husband Dave of 34 years. We have 5 children, including 2 in-laws. I include them in my clan. And then we have 3 granddaughters, Emily, Kaylee, and Bethany, 13, 12, and 11, and they're all sisters. So it's pretty busy, delightfully so. So I have some background that I wanted to share with you. I haven't actually shared this yet on the campaign trail because we oftentimes go right into vocational backgrounds and things like that. But you know, I believe that our experiences in life are what make us who we are, and it's what invests in who we are. And there's just a little story I was inspired to tell today because we're here in Port Angeles, and there's some issues related to my background that I think I can lend to this effort here in Port Angeles, and that is that when I was 13 years old and was 8th grade, my dad came and picked me up from school to take me to talk to a psychiatrist about my mother. My mother ended up being diagnosed with schizophrenia and paranoia. Prior to that, as a teenager, I just thought she was kind of weird. But then all of a sudden, my whole world just fell apart. It was very difficult for me. We had just moved into a new area, and it really kind of spurred me into self-destruct mode for the next few years through high school. It was very, very, very difficult. And then at the age of 17, I became a statistic. I got pregnant, and I had my daughter at 18. She's going to be 40, and it's just kind of, we're more peers now. And I share this with you because there's a lot of issues that come up, and I know here in our communities and at the legislature, and I do have a level of expertise personally. I also have 30 years background in public policy, so things can be redeemed, and I'm here to be evidence of that people are redeemable. And I'm looking forward to investing all that I've learned. I have a background in journalism. I have leadership background, economic development. I've worked in many different sectors, all of which kind of share a common denominator, and that is I like to learn about people. I love people. I love to tell their stories. I love to empower people. For the last 5 years in Olympia, I've trained over 1,000 people. I'm very proud of this book. I bring it with me because it reminds me of why we do what we do. It's about the people. So I have this with me tonight. You're welcome to look through it after this forum tonight. But anyway, so I just wanted to share that with you, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions to the best of my ability. I end up learning more from you, I think, when you ask the questions than I think you might learn from me, but thank you very much.
All right, thank you both. And now it's time for the audience questions. And again, if you can't come to the mic or don't wish to, you can write your question on a card, and either a neighbor can read it for you, or you can give it to a league member, and Barbara Vanderwerf, our microphone holder, will read it for you. And if you need a card, please raise your hand, and a league member will bring you one. And please state your name at the beginning of your question, and you may direct your question to one or both candidates, but as before, both candidates will have an opportunity to answer every question. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Therese Stoker from Neah Bay, and I have a twofold question. One is for Michael, a Makah native from Neah Bay, about climate change and preparing for its impact on our communities. He states, I think the storm that is coming through right now is an example of what to expect in the future. How will each of you try to work toward insulating these places, such as Neah Bay and other coastal communities, from the increasing weather phenomena that we've been witnessing? And the second part is, How do each of you plan on reaching out to the Native American people of this area in terms of finding out what their needs are and addressing them?
We'll begin with Mr. Rossini.
Well, I've actually done some of that. Back in 2007, I've been working in Olympia about the last 10 years, and in 2007, I left Olympia and decided to go invest some time in my community. I'm working in economic development, both in Jefferson County. I'm one of the founders of the EDC there, and also the Peninsula Development District. But one of the things that came out of that was the Peak Leadership Program. And I'm a graduate of the Penn State Rural Leadership Program. It's something that really transformed me, taught me how to build bridges, not barriers. And one of the things that we did was we visited every single tribe on the North Olympic Peninsula for the sole purpose of interviewing them, learning from them, getting a real grasp of the history. And because I don't think if you don't understand your history, you don't understand where you're headed. So I have done that, and I think I'm out of time. Am I out of time?
Oh, 5 more seconds.
Oh, I can't solve climate change in 5 seconds. But this is something that I'm learning. I know Micah McCarty really well, and I actually have learned a lot from Micah about climate change. And so if I was to try and do something, I would probably consult with him and consult with the people. Mayor Parker, good friend of mine, I would probably do that. So, thank you.
Mr. Vanderbeek?
Thank you. The question, the way I heard it was not necessarily on what our thoughts are on climate change, it's what to do as climate change ravages our shorelines. Of course, the 24th Legislative District has thousands of miles of beautiful shoreline, and the effects of climate change is having an effect on those shorelines. In fact, the storm tonight will probably be pretty brutal to ocean shores. It is costly to fix those and to shore up and to put in riptide and stuff, but the state, and along with our federal partners, is committed to doing the best we can. I know Derek talked about some of the tribes moving, and unfortunately that's reality for the Hoh and a couple others. But working with the Corps, when there's an emergency, the Corps has always been there to help us. They, Representative Kilmer's office does a great job with helping them smooth line permitting processes and getting projects done quickly. So I think the state's role is really in helping and working with the Corps. And sorry, I only got to the first question. But I've had a lot of good relationship with the tribes. We have 6 great tribes in our district, and I work well with all of them.
Would you like rebuttal?
Well, only to say, I do stand corrected. I was trying to speak quickly. I knew you weren't asking us to solve climate change, but rather the protection and things like that. So, anyways, yeah.
So in the 6 tribes, I have good working relationships with all of them. Each has different needs and desires and the direction that they want to see their tribe go in, and I respect that and look at them as the state being a partner with them to meet whatever goals they have for themselves. And I think the state has done a good job in doing that, and it's one of the favorite parts of my job, actually.
All right, thank you.
Yes. My name is Bob Hitchcock. I'm the general manager at Sherwood Manor and the 5th Avenue. Kevin, you and I probably don't have a lot in common this evening. However, it is a great day to be a cougar. Just so you know. Here's my question, and I said what I said to frame my where I stand. But 1433 is going to take effect for sure after November. That's the increase in the minimum wage. My question is that we forget the seniors on the other end of this that have fixed incomes that are not going to see increases. If you look at Social Security, it's not going to change all that much. But we have an 18% increase in the minimum wage that's impacting businesses across the state. What are you going to do to, or how are you going to solve the problem of people that are on fixed incomes, primarily our seniors that are bearing the brunt?
And Mr. Vanderbeek, you have
So 1433 is an initiative I support, but it'll ultimately be up to the people, not the legislature, on whether it passes or not. I agree, though, with you that it stands, I think, a good shot of being enacted by the people. One thing that the state has done a good job in, and I imagine we'll do more in, is supporting the seniors that are in need and on disability and Medicaid to make sure that they get enough of those funds to be able to take care of them themselves. They're the most cost-effective way, and sometimes the best way for the person is to remain in their home with a caregiver. There are a lot of folks that need to go to homes like Sherwood, and I go to Sherwood a number of times, obviously, in my other job. And those costs can be divvied up in a number of different ways as opposed to with private pay and through government funding.
Where's Bob? Oh, okay. It's like, where'd you go? I'm opposed to 1433. I'm not opposed to people making a good wage. What it proposes isn't even enough. It's enough for maybe a single person to support themselves, but not a family. It doesn't really solve the problem it's intended to do. I don't like one-size-fits-all solutions. In a state like ours, I mean, just think about the peninsula, all the diversity here, and apply that to a whole state. We've got so many different types of economies going on here. It is, as Kevin said, it's up to the people. They're going to pass or fail. They believe it's going to pass. But then it's going to be up to the legislature to fix it. Because what we need is again, not a one-size-fits-all, but something that is tiered down, something that is relevant to the areas that it will be imposed upon, so that it doesn't crush the businesses such as in our communities. And I've heard some very disheartening predictions from business people. I'm not speaking politically, I'm business people, and maybe I'll get to share that later, because I have stuff.
Okay, go ahead, you can have 30 seconds.
There's a business in Forks that I think was most telling. Forks is, out there, they don't have a lot of resources, especially since, they're still kind of in their logging recovery, getting businesses back. And there's a business there that gives a lot of money to that's charities in the town. And because of this particular initiative, she is going to be forced to not donate to those organizations so that she can keep the people that work for her working. And this is somebody who's very giving and doesn't mind paying taxes, but this is going to break it. So that's just one story.
All right, next question.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Judy DeMore, and I'm going to ask you whether you support Initiative 735, which calls for a constitutional amendment to end the enormous influence that the super wealthy and the corporations are having over our political system through a constitutional amendment that says corporations are not people and money is not speech. Instead, passing a constitutional amendment requires the advocacy of our constitutional representatives and also, of our congressional representatives and also our legislature. Will you use your office in legislature to advocate for passage of this constitutional amendment?
Mr. Senior.
Thank you, Judy. Do you mind if I repeat my answer from the last time? One thing that Judy has taught me through asking these questions, is that whenever we talk about this issue, Citizens United, and that corporations aren't people, and I agree with that, but people run corporations, so I do support people in the corporations to be able to do what they are most, they're inclined to do. But I didn't realize, because there's so much emphasis on Citizens United and corporations, I didn't realize that this also applies to unions. And so when I heard that actually piqued my interest a little more, and I've been really contemplating this whole initiative. And I'm still mixed, but I've been talking to a lot of people about it. And I'm very hesitant to amend the Constitution. I think that transparency can be attained without that. And in fact, Judy inspired me through this. I have my PDC report here, and you're welcome to look at it. And in fact, I am starting to put it in my ads because I have nothing to hide. And I think that's a good start. And so I haven't made up my mind yet, but thank you, Judy.
Mr. Benjamin?
Thank you for the question. I can answer yes to all of your questions. Corporate personhood, I think, is something that's wrong in this country, and it's something that's made politics a tougher place to find consensus. And I think it's given some powerful folks a whole lot of say on what goes on, and I would love to be able to draw back on that. Our state Public Disclosure Commission is one that is looked upon as being an example for other states to follow. It's very open and has a great website and information on who gives us money, where they come from, and how we spend the money is all easily findable. But there are still loopholes in it, and we can make it better. Thank you.
Would you like rebuttal?
No.
Mr. Ledwig? All right. Next question.
My name is Paula Barnes. Could you please tell us your position on gun safety legislation? Do you have parameters for what kinds of legislation you would support or oppose to reduce gun violence?
And we'll begin with Mr. Vanderweg.
Okay, thank you. So there's an initiative on the ballot this year. The number escapes me, but it's extreme protection order. I support extreme protection orders, always have. This one isn't perfectly written, but it is written in a way that I still support it. I think the legislature is going to be tasked with implementing some parts of it. You know, initiatives are written to pass, not to be good law, and this one's no different. All initiatives are like that. Our Attorney General Bob Ferguson has talked about trying to have a assault weapons ban. I would oppose that, and generally I oppose legislation that goes after law-abiding citizens, and an assault weapons ban goes after law-abiding citizens that have done nothing wrong, but would be impacted by that. Plus, they've had a history of being really hard to implement and not always working. The extreme protection orders, I'll talk about in my rebuttal.
Yeah, I want to reference 21491, the extreme protections orders, and I found both pro and con with it. I do support empowering families and law enforcement to prevent tragedy. As I mentioned, I come from a family. I understand mental illness, although I would not want to project that on my mother. She was not a danger to any of us. She was actually a very good mom. It gives them a chance to remove the guns from dangerous situations when they know someone is a threat to themselves or others. I support that part. What I didn't support, I couldn't find anything in the research that I did that it would safeguard innocent people from having their firearms taken away under false pretenses. So in that situation, you know, sorry, am I done?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I see that out of my perimeter. I don't want to overstep. And I don't support the ban either. And as far as protections, it just seems like there's just this incrementalism that happens, and I want to be very cautious about that in all cases related to firearms. Thank you.
Now you get your rebuttal.
Extreme protection orders actually do have protection for innocent people because it requires a court order to be passed in order for it to go into effect. California has an extreme protection order, and this is not based off California's. This is substantially different than California's. One of the biggest differences is it doesn't go into effect until that person has their say in court, and that is not the way it is in California. That's probably going to be problematic down there. But this one is not written in that way, and that makes it, for me, easier to support.
Yeah, I would still be concerned about that. I would need to be convinced that there are those safeguards there. Even court orders require innocent people to be on the defense about something they don't need to be on the defense about. So I would want to be really, really careful about that. Thank you.
Next question.
Linda Brewster, I'm wondering if either of you have taken a position or will be willing to take a position on the TPP. You might say, what does this have to do with the state senate? I believe it has a great deal to do with the state senate, and that the more people do go against NAFTA on steroids, which has cost this community a lot of jobs, a sawmill that's been lost, and many, many jobs go with it. Economic development may be a wonderful thing, but it is an uneven thing. Talk about it isn't a one size fits all. It affects various people differently, yes. So do you support the TPP?
All right, Mr. Rossini, you're first.
Well, I'm just learning about the TPP. So I've been entrenched in state issues here for the last 6 months very intensely. But I was listening to the debate, and I have to learn about that. So it's, you know, I'm all for trade, but just balances. So thank you.
Thank you. Occasionally we get asked, commonly by email actually, about federal issues when we're state elected officials, and this one would fall into that realm. And I would have hesitation about it, but this truly, truly is a federal issue, and it affects, we have no say at all whatsoever in the TPP, and to be honest with you, I know very little about it. Trade is something that's very important to Washington, but from what little I've heard about it, and literally all I know about it is what's been said at debates, I would have hesitations, but that's all I can say.
I'd be happy to give you some websites to visit.
And that's wonderful.
That would be great.
We spend a lot of time on state issues, and the state has plenty enough to keep us busy, but thank you.
Do either of you wish to rebuttal on this? All right.
No, but I would like the website. I'd at least like to have a little bit of overview. So.
Next question.
Yes, my name is Norma Turner, and I want to ask the tax question. Washington State has one of the most aggressive tax systems in the nation. If you're rich, you pay single digits for your in taxes. If you're poor, you pay double digits. So what very specific measures would you work on to bring more equity to the tax system in Washington State?
Mr. Vanderbeek, you're first.
Thank you for that question, Norma. Potentially, the state might be looking at needing revenue for the McCleary decision, and I think there's things such as closing tax loopholes, tax exemptions, whatever you choose to call them, streamlining government, making it more accountable in order to save money and get revenue that way. But if all of that does not get us to where we need to be, the third thing that I would favor would be instituting a capital gains tax in the state, and that would, in answer to your question, tax the folks that are most able to pay, because it would tax the sale of non-retirement stocks and bonds, and I think that would help bring some, make our tax system more equitable and less regressive.
Mr. Rossini?
Yeah, I would like to see taxing become a lot more equitable and actually make sense, because there's a lot of things that get taxed. It seems like just on a whim. We need it, so we just find something to tax. Businesses taxed really needs to be reformed. I believe lifting the taxes off of some of the people that can pay them maybe would help some other issues and help to bring taxes in other areas. But I don't support an income tax, I don't support capital gains tax, and I think that government has to tax in order to support services. But there are quite a few services, I believe, and quite a few things that the government is funding that we should maybe look at and reassess to see if we really need to fund those things. So I think that would help. But we need to just, I kind of look at it sometimes like a homemaker. You know, I had to go in and clean the kids' room, and you just like, oh, you just want to take it and just like start over. And in some ways it's just so complicated for every layer. I would like to see us really do some reforms, serious reforms that work with people and not against them.
Would you like rebuttals?
Yeah, in rebuttal, you know, one of the things that I try to do in life is find the positives in everything, and there was a positive with our recession. We streamlined our state government because we had to do hundreds of millions of dollars in cuts, and that made us as accountable as we possibly can. So I do not agree, and I would disagree, that the state is spending a lot of money that we don't need to. All of that is spent for a purpose, and I would love to hear examples that you might have. There are lots of industry groups that pay for things. For instance, the Blueberry Commission is a commission that you might not think is needed, but it's paid for by blueberry farmers. It's not, there's no general fund money that goes into it, it's more or less pass-through, and it's something the state runs. So on the surface there might be things, but I would disagree that we're funding a lot of services that people don't need.
All right, Mr. Urson.
Well, I've worked in Olympia for the last 10 years, and it's pretty much, it seems to me the best way to describe it, it's a rerun. And it doesn't seem like there's a lot of thought put into the process, other than just repeating. To me, that makes me nervous when it comes to spending the state's revenues. What are we spending it on? And so I do think that we do need to assess what we're spending money on. What is constitutionally required, what is in the public's interest, the public welfare, public safety, and we need to assess things. There has to be sunset clauses on the things that the state finances, and or at least we have to reassess things on a regular basis. I think that would help.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jim Bauer, and Kevin, I have just a real simple question for you. I honestly don't know the answer. You're a firefighter, and you're on full-time salary. So, could you explain to me how that works? I mean, you're gone a lot. Did somebody cover for you, or somebody pay your salary, or how does that all work? I'd just like to know that. One for both of you. Do you want to have any business experience? Have you ever hired people, fired them? I'm facetious there. But anyway, I'd like to know about that, because here's where I'm at. I've been in business for 54 years. Your regulations are killing us. That's my question. Yes, I had to get that. I preface it that a little bit. But I just wanted to know if you understand what you're doing. I have a friend that's been a dentist for 50 years, and he says the same thing. Half his time spent in doing paperwork.
All right.
Thank you.
It is your turn to start first. The question was sort of directed to Mr.
Because
Vanderway.
I can't answer his fire.
How about I answer that in my rebuttal part, and let's just do the
Can
second.
we
All
just
right,
do
go
that
ahead.
first?
That's fine. We'll start with you.
Okay. So, Jim, your question was,
What's your business experience?
my business,
and
okay,
regulations?
business. Well, I have a consulting firm that I rarely have very many clients, because I usually take on a client and that's all I do, is that work for that client. So as far as, I don't ever really have to pay very many taxes either, because I work on a shoestring. I pretty much give my services away. But I have been learning about business from business people. I'm not an expert in small business, they are. So I have been doing what I do. I'm a former journalist. I ask questions. I go and interview people. I've been interviewing small businesses, asking them what they think. And this is what I hear across the board. In fact, it gets to the level of businesses feeling very oppressed. And if you look up the definition of that word, that is exactly what I have been hearing from people. They feel very oppressed. They feel like the government works against them, that they would like the government to work with them so they could be successful and help the state. So.
Thank you for the question. On the business, I have no true business experience. I have been on business communities, currently sit on a trade committee where I work with businesses, large and small, that deal in trade. As far as management of people and hiring and firing, for the last 6 years, I've been majority whip in the House, and that's a management position where I have been in charge of hiring and unfortunately in termination of various House employees for various reasons, and also the liaison to my colleagues when things don't go right.
Rebuttal?
I've hired people, I've never had to fire people. But does being a statewide grassroots director count for working with people? And I have done that for many, many years. So, but I understand what you're asking regarding the nuances of running a business and the challenges, so.
And then for the fire department question, so during session, I take time off, or make it work 3 different ways. I use time off that I've accrued. I do trades with people. So the department, as long as somebody's equally as qualified as I am, I can trade throughout the year. So like in this year, in June and last month, some this month, I worked a bunch of extra shifts. Those people will be paying me back during session. And then during session, the third way is I work on the weekends. Since being elected, I've, for the last 10 years, I've always spent more nights away from home than at home, which is tough, particularly having a family. But they've been very supportive and committed to what I'm doing, and so far, we've made it work.
Thank you.
My name is Denise Pankenstat. We talk about raising the minimum wage. There is a group of individuals in the state who, for certain employers, are exempted out of minimum wage. That's the disabled and blind. And I was wondering what we could do to remedy that and to have all of our citizens be eligible for a guaranteed minimum wage.
And we'll start with Mr. Vanderbeek.
And so that is that an initiative or that's in current minimum wage law?
It's in current with minimum wage law.
Okay. Honestly, I was not aware of that, and that would be something I'd be interested in looking at. I know a lot of businesses that hire the folks get state, the correct word is escaping me, state benefits for hiring those folks, so maybe there's a way around that we could work to remedy that. But I'd be interested in that for sure.
I wasn't aware of that at all, but it's concerning. And, you know, just because you're disabled or blind doesn't mean you can't do the job, and that you shouldn't be qualified and considered for that, for sure. So, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Rebuttal for either of you?
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jim Stauffer, and I'm on the swim school board, so your question's going to be on taxes and education funding. So this election is probably one of the most important as far as education for this community and also for our state. So if you believe in new taxes, what specifically are those that you would use to fully fund education? And if you don't believe in new taxes, what you specifically believe will need to be cut in order to fully fund education. And you could include in your answer how you feel about our trust lands here, and then also the supermajority that we have to pass bond levies for new construction. Thank you.
All right, and we'll begin with Mr. Singh.
First of all, I believe in taxes. I pay taxes. I think they're necessary. So it's not a matter of believing or not believing in taxes. I just don't think taxing should be the default response and remedy for everything that we do. So I'm very reluctant. I want to be very, very careful before I would ever think about that. I have been really kind of treating this like a feature story, multifaceted. There's so many different things that we have to look at with this issue. And I'll start with the lottery. And the lottery is kind of indicative of a problem that we have in the state. How many of you were here when the lottery passed? What were you told it was going to pay for?
Education.
Does it pay for education? Okay, this is a problem. I think we need to backtrack. I think we need to get things back on track and do what we said we were going to do. And that's, you know, I kind of like to start at the beginning, so.
I'm happy to report the lottery does pay for education. The lottery has about $100 million a year that goes towards state school construction. It goes off a $400 million budget, but they have, I think, an operating cost of around $20 million, and then the rest, which is what, 380 or 280, goes towards winnings. I mean, we have a solid lottery in the state, but it does, lottery goes towards education. It raises $100 million, and we spend around $8 billion a year on education. So it goes towards it, but it by no means was ever intended to fully fund it. And I think, and I was here, and I think when it was instituted, people said it was going to fully fund education, or use that insinuation. I've already talked about McCleary funding, and I feel the state is streamlined right now, but anytime we need revenue, we need to look at the current funding we have to see if there's streamlining, accountability, or things we can cut. That's first priority. Second priority is cutting tax loopholes, and I'll talk more about that in my rebuttal.
All right. Rebuttal?
Yes, there is, for funding, one of the things that has been introduced, I've been hearing it from both sides of the aisle, so I think it's something that the legislature and the give and take of the legislature, they can come to agreement on this, and that's what they call the levy swap, and to equalize these levies across the state so that, you know, they're more equalized. In Seattle, they pay much less than, say, you know, than we're here, and even like University pays like $4 per thousand, around that. I don't have it right in front of me, but that's one of the remedies, one of the things that we could look at.
So the closing tax loopholes and exemptions would be the next place to look for revenue, and then lastly, capital gains tax. I think we can get there just from closing tax exemptions. Levy legalization sounds like a great idea, and it will be, and it's something we need to do to some extent. Our schools will benefit, but the higher areas like Everett and Edmonds aren't going to be thrilled about sending a bunch of money to the Olympic Peninsula and decreasing their services while their tax amount stays the same. Levy legalization is only one piece of the puzzle to start solving the clear.
Thank you. And this will have to be our last question.
I'm Diane Diamond, a forum groupie, and I have a two-part question. One is, do you believe that we should be moving as rapidly as possible away from fossil fuels? And if so, what do you feel about coal trains running through our state as well as coal terminals wanting to be built?
And we'll begin with Mr. Bentley.
Thank you. I am excited about getting off fossil fuels. I think we need to do it correctly though, so I wouldn't necessarily say as rapidly as possible. We need to make sure we have the infrastructure to replace it. Transportation certainly is the biggest result of fossil fuels, and it's something that businesses, I think, often are blamed for climate change and for emitting carbon. And we need to look at transportation more as being part of that, and I think the industry is in large part taking care of that by producing fuel-efficient and electric cars. I forgot, I'll have to answer the second part of your question in my rebuttal because I forgot what it was, I'm sorry.
Coal trains and things.
Coal trains, no, not. I would prefer they don't happen. The state doesn't have a lot of say over that, but the train industry has not proven that they are willing to put in the safeguards to make coal trains safe, so I hesitate around them.
I would love to see us get off of fossil fuels, but living in a rural community, I'm kind of afraid of horses. So you know, it's difficult to do. So yeah, we need to do that. I always look for alternative energy. I love that right now we get exemptions for solar, but I heard that this was going to expire, and this is something that would be good for the legislature to look at, to continue that, the exemptions, or the, what is it called when you get the solar, okay, the rebates. And yeah, so it's really important. One of the things that we're doing in our family and emergency preparedness, we're looking at lots of different alternatives and we're applying them in our own home. And so I think that it's good. We need to do that. As far as coal trains and terminals, I have a little unique perspective. My husband is the bus express manager for Sound Transit, and we get calls in the middle of the night because trains derail. And the system needs to be updated, and I'm not opposed to us using rail, but one of the things I said to my husband, how come when we go on a roller coaster and it goes upside down, it doesn't fall off? We have the technology. I think we need to apply it, and we need to do it safely. But until they fix these tracks up, I'm not real thrilled about it. I wouldn't want it in my backyard, and I don't want it in my neighbor's backyard either. So.
Okay, rebuttal, Mr. Vanderweg? All right. Rebuttal?
No. All right, unless people have further questions.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And to wrap up, we'll now move to our 2-minute closing statements. And Ms. Terracina, you are first.
Okay, thank you. It's been a privilege to be here this evening. I thank you for your questions. Like I said, I always learn from them, and I go and study up and learn more. I decided to run for this seat because I felt like the district deserved a choice. Senator Hargrove served with great distinction, and to not have a balance challenge to the seat, I felt was just not right. And I'm qualified to do it. My 30 years policy experience qualifies me for that. I do bring to the table some unique experiences in my life and vocationally. I've been a journalist. Why does that help? Well, I've learned that there's more than two angles to stories, that there's many to stories or to an issue. We have to have someone there that's going to look at all sides of issues and to really take all those sides seriously and to recognize that each one of those things is part of the puzzle. And when we isolate pieces of a puzzle, what happens? You ever do jigsaw puzzles? You get to the end and the pieces are missing? It's frustrating. And right now, look at us. We're very frustrated with each other. We have resorted to name calling and slander and innuendo, and we can't even say something without somebody slapping a label on us. This has got to stop. I have a background of building bridges, not barriers. I want to bring that to the table. I want to see us really, truly start to work together, not just rhetorically, but actually work together. And you know when it's happening, when you actually start to move forward and solve problems. So thank you very much for the privilege of being here, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you to the league for putting it on. I just want to clarify, I haven't called you names or anything. No. I really appreciate people being this interested in coming out for an evening and hearing us talk, and I hope everybody had a chance to answer or ask their question. I would be more than willing to stay after and talk to anybody if there's anybody left. I've enjoyed working in the state legislature for the last 10 years, and I ask for your vote on November 8th to let me work and represent you in the state senate. It is similar to the House, but different in many ways, and it'll prove to be challenging, and if elected, I hope to do a good job there, and feel free, as always, to contact me. My personal cell phone is 477-0548. It's easy to find. People can feel free to call me anytime or email us, and thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Can I make a rebuttal? I wasn't speaking about you specifically. I actually thought of something else.
And thank you, candidates, and I hope you will stay to answer individual questions. And now you may give them a round of applause, but we're not finished.